Good evening, Richard Dreyfuss fans. That might be the case. All right, now, you're in for a treat, ladies and gentlemen, because Richard Dreyfuss is in the house, and we are very, very excited. He has specifically asked me, unlike Sedona that goes to bed at 9 o'clock, he has specifically asked me, Pat, can we just have a long, fun Q&A after this film? And I said, yes, we can. So we are gonna have Richard Dreyfuss Unplugged after you see this film, and we're gonna have a great, great time. So, the 8-time nominated film, they won for Best Cinematography, and our own Sedona resident, Frank Warner, who did the sound editing, got a Special Achievement Award in Sound Editing Oscar for his work on here. Frank was a dear, treasured personal friend. He's the one that founded our workshop and Filmmaker Conversation series. He's a treasured, dear man. We miss him dearly every day here at the Sedona Film Festival, and it only took those 5 notes. Ba-bum-bum-bum-bum, right? That's all he said. He said 5 notes define my Oscar. That's what he used to say. Ladies and gentlemen, celebrating 40 plus 1 years, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a nice warm welcome back to Sedona, Mr. Richard Dreyfuss.
This is the only film I ever lied, cheated, and stole to get into. I badmouthed every actor in Hollywood to get this part. And it's an old story, but it's true. Stephen told me about it when we were shooting Jaws. I helped him a little bit, not a lot, during the shooting at Universal. And when he said something like, it was originally written for someone like Gene Hackman, and the character was a lifer in the military, like a staff sergeant or something. And the minute I heard him say something like, well, maybe we're thinking of maybe changing, and I went, and proceeded to badmouth everybody. I would just walk by his office and say, Al Pacino has no sense of humor. Robert De Niro is crazy, and I don't care. I just made things up, and I didn't care. And I knew something, and I said to him, one day, I leaned into his office and I said, Stephen, you need a child. And he looked up and said, you got the part. I knew he needed a man who had a family, but had hidden a child inside him. And if you notice, in this last sequence of the film, the last 40 minutes, do you know how many of the people that were on the human side of that story had childlike faces and wonder in their faces? And that was a deliberate thing that Stephen did that I didn't even notice at the time. But that boy, Carrie Elwes, that is one of the most beautiful faces I've ever seen, and you could see in his face everything you needed to see. And I can only tell you that the only thing more beautiful than watching him was watching how Stephen directed him. Because he was, this kid was 5 or something, and there was not anything between him and Stephen. There was no encumbrance, there was no obstacle, there was nothing, because Stephen zoned in on him and he just responded. And after the film was released, his mother swooped him up, took him back to Atlanta, and just shut the door and said, no more of that crap. And I can't tell you. Stephen is very well known for his ability to deal with kids. And E.T. is great for that. But this was like magic. And you could only, I can't even tell you what it was, because you can't talk to a 4-year-old and make him understand. A human brain is not developed enough. But boy, there's a moment that you saw him look, and then start to smile, and then start this delight, and how did he do that? I was hired in those days, seriously, because I had the ability to go, and there was nothing there. And that's why they hired me. And I used to say, $35,000. Watching him work with the kid watching that kid is just incredible to me. And also it does something, I think, to you. I think it makes you realize, remember, this is a thriller. And you know that something is happening when you see that me in the truck, you know, with the lights that go up, and then the truck goes crazy. You know that something is happening, and it could be ominous. And it's because it's told through that child's face that it takes the edge off that ominous nature of things. And I knew when I was first told the story that this was a film that would outlive us all. And that I've always told every involved, if this film had opened 6 months before Star Wars, space and would be written by the greatest writers of our culture about adult themes. And instead, the territory was taken by George and a film for kids. And it became for kids. This film was not made for kids. It was made for parents and adults. It was made for adults, and it was subtle. And when Bob Balaban, at the opening moment, goes, you know it. That's a subtle thing. Anyway, did I say a lot? And Steven Spielberg had made such a mark on the industry so fast that he was allowed to do something that no one else was ever allowed to do before or after, which was that after the film made gazillions of dollars, he just said, you know, I think I could do that a little better, and could I take it? And he tinkered with it and re-released it with another ending, with a more fleshed out ending. But it was still not kind of satisfying. And and he said two things. One was, he said, if I had been a parent when I made Close Encounters, I would have not made the same film. He would have changed something. Because one of the facts of this story is that this man goes away and he will never see his children, and they will be long, long gone if he ever does return. He walks away from his family. And at the time, it didn't go unnoticed, but it certainly felt justified, I feel. And Stephen says he would have done it differently because being a parent changed him. I don't actually agree with him. I don't believe it. I think he would have done the same thing. He might have made it better, but he had to have that guy leave. And I have thought of a sequel, which I will tell you. Just a moment. We'll take a commercial break here. Now that I'm back, Here's the sequel. I'm standing there and I say, did you ever see a film called Close Encounters of the Third Kind where Roy Neary goes up and I'm back. I'm back and I now know I can cure cancer, I have the secrets of life, I know how to achieve inner serenity, immortality, I know how to make the human race as perfect a species as there can be in the universe. But I'm not going to tell you any of that until I find myself a really good, strong lawyer, because I know the film business just eats that shit alive, and I'm not going to say anything until I know that I'm protected. Thank you very much. That's the sequel.
Hi, Mr. Dreyfuss. That was awesome. I'm wondering about, would you agree that one of the more far-fetched parts of the movie is that the aliens use the same 12-note scale as modern Western music? Or is that sort of meant to imply that we are evolutionary cousins of the aliens? What do you think?
I think that they probably evaluated our culture for quite a while before they did it. And I think that they were smarter than you. You know, I said to John Williams, how long did it take you to figure out the ba-da-da? And he says, I sat down at the piano and I went da-da-da-da, and that was it. But I apologize for that. I do think that you gotta credit these aliens. You gotta credit them. Nothing they did in this film was perceived as stupid. And although I would question all kinds of sightings and behavior of alien ships and stuff, the way we know about it, that's why the beginning of the film is for me, so great, because it's the traffickers, the airline traffic controllers. And they told us they get them every day. Every day at every airport in the world. And they are infested with what they think is ships from somewhere else.
I wanted to ask you about, after this movie, have you witnessed anything unusual? Have you experienced a close encounter by any chance, after this? Did you look for the sky?
Myself? No. Myself? No. Myself? Myself, no. I have experienced an extraordinary amount of actual spiritual crazy stuff that none of your business. But not that. And neither has Stephen, by the way. And Stephen and I both yearn to see something like this. And I don't know whether you're aware of it, but there's been such lately a plethora of news stories that have come out since last summer that I got the feeling that they were laying pipe, that they were planning some announcement. And it's quite possible that something like that could happen. But no, I've never, and I also don't know, I do question the behavior of aliens who always choose rural areas and they are always naked and bald. And I don't think so. And one of the things about Alien, the movie Alien, is that I don't know about you, but I was totally aware from the beginning that this drooling and clawed, how did that turn the screw of the bolt of the door to the bathroom? How did they make the ship if they had that, you know what I mean? And a prehensile claw. And I think it would have been really smart of the people who made Alien if they had shown the natural or tool-making ability of those animals, of those people. And why are they always naked? And it's not because they're very attractive. And so there's a whole bunch of storytelling points that have annoyed me about this. But no. And by the way, there was a guy you saw in this movie who was an extra, and he had been in charge of Project Blue Book, which was the project by the Air Force that was debunking all of the stories. And for 15 years or so, I don't remember, he had been in charge of that, and he quit because he said there were just too many that he believed, and he couldn't lie about it. And so he's actually in the film at one point, stroking his beard and watching. So was my father. He said to me, I think I'm gonna see what you're doing with your life. And he volunteered to be an extra. Unfortunately, once he volunteered, he was stuck. And he didn't realize it would be 6 or 8 weeks of him standing doing absolutely nothing. And he hated every single minute of it. And it just warms my heart.
You mentioned this a little earlier about Steven Spielberg going back and doing other versions. I recently got the box set. There's 3 or 4 different versions, and I was just curious, a two-parter. Do you have a favorite version of the film, and why? And how do you feel about directors being able to go back and rewrite history as far as their films? Are you a purist that wish they would just leave them alone, or are you a fan of being able to go back and continue to change?
Well, I think as long as it's the same guy, he has the right to do whatever he wants to do. It's Ted Turner colorizing another man's work. That I object to. That's different. But Steven, taking his own work, what is he? He's not allowed to be a revisionist. That's kind of silly, isn't it? I mean, no, I don't object. I object to Ted Turner doing the.
And what was your favorite version? Do you have one?
No, I guess, I mean, the first one hit me as powerfully as it hit other people, and so I guess I'd go with that. I don't think the second gained anything. There is a great anecdote that David Lean, who made, among others, Lawrence of Arabia, which I saw at the first 9 a.m. screening in the public in Los Angeles, and again at 12. And then I didn't see it for about 5 years, and I saw it one more time, and then never saw it again. 50 years later, David Lean's revision, or 40 years, whatever, Lean was allowed to release his own directorial cut, which was different than the original. And the first thing you realize when you watch the cut that David Lean wanted to release was that the producer was right and Lean was wrong. That everything he wanted, that the producer said take out, should have been taken out, and everything that was kept in by Lean was repetitive. And so, you know, I said this to Francois Truffaut. Now, first of all, the fact that I can actually say that sentence, I said something to Francois Truffaut, still makes me just tingle. Francois Truffaut was as as sweet and gentle as he looked, and he was also as tough as a nail. And he was the inventor, the creator of the auteur theory. The director as artist, the director's single artist. And so I took great pleasure in saying to him when I met him sometime after that I didn't agree. I said there's no such thing as an auteur, because a director has to answer more questions per day than any other occupation other than President of the United States. And he has to make decisions that are based upon the input of more departments and more artists in their field than any other. And the end of a film is always the end result of work of many, many, many people. Many. And he may make the final cut or the final, release decision, but auteur, solitary artist, no. And he is responsible as, the shepherd is responsible, but he's not the only guy out there. And without the greatest of department heads, without the greatest special effects and costumes and all that, you can't do a film. And so, although I think it's a great ambition, and if I was recommending to someone who was young, who wanted to go into show business, I would not recommend that they be actors. I would recommend that they go for directing, that was more satisfying. But I was able to tell Francois Truffaut, and he said, and imagine the gall, the courage that it took Stephen to ask Francois Truffaut to be in this movie. And Truffaut read the script, said yes. Just imagine that exchange, because, Stephen had made Jaws, and he had made Duel. And Duel was originally made as a TV movie, which was so good that they released it all over the world as a feature. And it was fantastic. And that's it. And he sent Francois Truffaut this script and asked him to play this character, and the response was yes. And Truffaut understood that it would take a long, long time. What he didn't understand, and when he told us this, we all cracked up, he said that he had acted in films that he directed. He had directed films that he had written. He had acted and written films he directed. He had never just acted. And he couldn't believe how boring it was. And he said, I can't believe you people just, what do you do all day? And actually, during the shoot, he wrote 2 scripts. But it was an honor to work with him. It was an honor. And he made more films that I loved than I can possibly tell you, sure.